The following is brought to you by the Starfleet Podcast Network, SPN, The Spin. Let's talk about the Starfleet Podcast Network, shall we?
Let's do it.
So, here's what it is.
We need a jingle. We definitely need a jingle.
A jingle?
Podcast Network.
I could think of something maybe to put in that's kind of cool and unique maybe. But first, let me do some introductions. So, I'm Big J with the Beyond Trek podcast. And how about the two of you introduce yourselves and the name of your podcast?
My name is Alfie, and I am co-host and founder of Star Trek Highly Illogical. We started off as a podcast, but now we've evolved into a weekly Star Trek-esque pub quiz where we test mine and my co-host Spencer. Give him a big shout out, who isn't here right now, but I'm sure you'll see his dazzling face at some point. We just basically test each other and our chat all things Star Trek. There's no wrong answers. The more highly illogical, the better.
Awesome. And excellent.
Cool. And I'm TechMan16 of Trek Talk with Tech and Kirk. And we are the Not Safe for Work spin-off podcast of a Star Trek mobile game called Star Trek Fleet Command. But we also discuss all things Star Trek related, and then we swerve into various not safe for work tangents.
Oh, so it really specializes in not safe for work, right?
Yeah, there are episodes where, normally the Star Trek Fleet Command community is an older community. I would say they're more, Gen Xers and older. So people can really take what the content we give them. But there are some episodes where I literally have to label that it's not safe for work.
You've got to do that to be on the safe side.
Well, I mean, usually our podcasts are considered, I check them as explicit, right? And, but,
like Picard style. Like it's not for kids, you've got to keep
it doesn't like children
away from Picard like you do.
Yeah, it's Well, the next generation Captain Picard style, not the Star Trek Picard style. Those are different styles.
Those are different, yeah.
Yes, okay. Thank you for clarifying.
And Alfie, I was on your trivia show last week, and it was awesome. Oh, it was a lot of fun because you guys specialize in the trivia side, the live stream. It was a lot of fun. It was that Beyond Trek podcast.
You absolutely kicked ass. You did so good. You're a crowning hero as of this week.
I want to be on there again. Definitely. Because where else am I going to use all this Star Trek knowledge I have? Nowhere. It's hard to apply in day-to-day life. So
you can inflict it on people in your day-to-day life.
I can. I make people listen to my stories about Star Trek.
You mean you don't work on warp drive particle accelerators all day?
No, I don't. I work on computers, laptops, technical stuff. No,
that must mean that your computer voice is Majel Roddenberry, right?
Well, yes. Right now, this isn't my computer voice, but my computer voice is the computer from Star Trek. That's funny, Majel Roddenberry.
Can you please do your best? But hello, I am computer. Isn't that like the original?
I can't do a whole lot of different voices. Hello, I'm a robot. That's close to that's maybe one of 5.
Sounded like the Cookie Monster.
Oh God, the Cookie Monster. That's crazy. Well,
I think
he's a hero.
We do episode reviews. That's our main thing at Beyond Trek.
For Lower Decks.
It is.
Monster invades Star Trek.
Oh, got Lower Decks. I was not. Well, before I go too far into that, so to say a little bit more about this, the Starfleet Podcast Network, there are a lot of Star Trek podcasts out there. They're all over the place. Everyone's trying to get their piece of maybe a couple hundred subscribers, a couple dozen views or listens on their podcast. So TechMan and myself had this idea of, why don't we kind of form sort of like a federation kind of thing where we join together, take some of these smaller Star Trek podcasts out there. Because we're not going to compete with the big ones, not the huge ones like the Paramount sponsored or the, those large podcasts. So I thought what would be fun
it's not
was,
our aim, really.
no, it's not. We're not trying to do that. It's just getting a community together of like-minded fans, but that do different things on their podcasts. And this was literally one of those, like I fell and hit my head on the toilet kind of ideas. And
how often do you do that?
That's a very graphical representation of how you come up with ideas.
Do you head on the toilet? So you're standing or are you already sitting?
I think I was sitting.
Were you finished? or did it happen before?
No, it was. I don't remember. I think I was at the computer playing games or something, and we're just walking on the hallway and it just hit me.
You on the toilet playing computer games?
No, the toilet thing. I think that was from Back to the Future. It wasn't Doc Brown sitting on the toilet trying to fix a clock or hang a clock or something and fell and hit his head. I can't remember the details.
Excuse me. I thought you meant you hit your head on the toilet. So
No, I've already had enough brain damage. So we decided we're going to group up and hopefully as we go along have other Star Trek podcasts that want to work with us because we still have our own individual separate identities. Like we're not changing our names or anything like that, but our content is going to go through, when we have new audio or video content, go through a common YouTube and audio podcast platform, which I thought sounded like a good idea. I mean, what do you guys think, being in something
if it goes
like this?
Well, it's a really good idea.
Oh, well, I'm glad you like the idea. Tech man, how about you? I'm sorry, Alfie, go ahead and expand some words.
No,
Let me hear it. Let me hear the compliment.
I just want to meet more people who love Trek as much as I do and talk about it in whatever capacity is available. Stop alienating my friends and family who do not give a fuck about Star Trek. And I'm just like, come on, you guys, it's so good. Like, why don't you understand? Why don't you get me? And they're like, sorry, please.
Would you say that your family says that your head's in the clouds?
I know
they
mine
wish
is.
My head was in the clouds. My head is so far past the clouds. They would be like, if I said to Mom, I think my head's in the clouds, I'd be like, oh, good. Yes.
Your head is in space. Mine's up my own ass. Tech, where's yours? Get your head out of your ass, you know?
Out. Where is it?
It's
After
somewhere.
Space is taken.
Outer space is taken.
Big J, I think you give me a little too much credit for, basically it was your idea. You're the one who approached me about this. What do we call it? Confederation? For anybody who watched Picard. There's a lot of niche content for Star Trek, and it's not a huge fan base. It's not like more popular titles, but there's obviously things to be said. There's things to be talked about, and it's great to have like-minded Trekkies effectively come together to form a bigger network, and hopefully the sum of the parts is greater than the whole, or the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. I can't remember how that saying goes.
It's something like that.
Yeah.
You're close.
Infinite diversity in lots of ways.
Infinite diversity and infinite combinations. Wasn't that it?
Thank you.
Yeah,
talking about Trek.
Yeah,
that actually never made sense to me, but I'm not a Vulcan.
It probably makes more sense to the Vulcan.
Infinite combination. Why doesn't it make sense?
Well, if you have infinite diversity and infinite combinations, then
it's like the same thing.
Potentially, as we know, the way biology works is that there's only a certain combination that works to proliferate. And so when you can have an infinite number, but that data doesn't represent anything. It's just a matter of which one actually works. So 1 in 100 trillion.
That's when the combinations comes to get people.
Yeah, but most of those combinations don't actually do anything. So I never understood that whole.
We don't need
what
to
they were trying to tell
on
us.
the ones that don't do anything. Focus on the experimentation with the possibilities of things that might do.
I can see what you're saying. I honestly, I'd never put a whole lot of thought into it like you did. And now that I think about that, it's one of those existential crisis things, But yeah, I think that it's one of those things where I will understand it after we're done talking. Like when you were trying to remember an idea that you had or remember someone's name, always happens way after the fact. But this is what I like about working with you guys already so far is the different pieces of Star Trek that we focus on. Because I know on our end with Beyond Trek Podcast, we would love to have been able to talk some more about the gaming side or have a trivia show, but it's just never really materialized. But as people, as subscribers, start spending more of that time with the Starfleet Podcast Network, they can get that combination of stuff. It's not just one straight. These are episode reviews all the time, some specialty projects. We're always seeing or listening to trivia shows or the talk about Star Trek Fleet Command. It's more of a variety. It's a variety of things, which I think would be pretty exciting. Now, this isn't something that we've done before, that really I haven't done before. So it's probably going to go through some growth and changes, things like that, readjustments as we go along. But, I like...
Because we're exploring strange new worlds.
Exploring strange new podcasts to seek out.
New life and new viewers.
That's right. New life and new viewers.
Where no Trekkies have gone.
Well,
I think it's exactly where every Trekkie has gone before. Down the rabbit hole of Trek.
Oh, yeah. You want to talk about going down a rabbit hole? There have been conversations I've had where I stop and ask myself, how did I get here? Where am I at? What were we talking about that had me go right into this hole? And how do I get out of it? It happens all the time.
Usually what happens on...
what?
What's that?
That happens on our show all the time. And shout out to my guys, Kirk, Boom, Handy.
Handy. Is that 3?
Yeah, three dudes.
I thought Boom was kind of like a...
No, it's short for...
word in between, like Kirk, Boom, Handy. Like
No. So Strange Kirk, Handy, and Boom Slang. Those are the other co-hosts of our show.
No more questions.
I just want to give them a shout out because they're good guys and they help grow what we started. And usually they go off on a tangent, and I'm the one that usually has to rein them in. So now that we're all here and we're all Trek nerds, we're just going to go in all sorts of tangents.
We're going to live in the world of tangents.
Right. This whole thing was just to talk about what the Starfleet Podcast Network is, and now we're going down the rabbit hole.
You see, it happens that quickly.
Picard versus TNG.
Well, this is what happens when you get Star Trek fans in the same room together. We go from, okay, we're just going to spend a few minutes talking about this thing, and then suddenly, why are we talking about how fresh Gok is better than refrigerated and Klingon food language?
Is okay.
I'm glad you've eaten Gok before.
I'd like to try it.
To let us know. By the way, I've always wanted to ask, is it really hard for people to do this?
It's not. No.
We actually talked about this on the show earlier tonight. Mine does like a creepy hand first before it goes into it. It's like, hello.
Like Smeagol?
Yes. Hi, precious. Oh, Star Trek. Yeah, exactly.
So a Yoda hand.
It broke. This one is just now.
There are some out there that can't do that. I would like to. Okay, if you can't do the Vulcan greeting, the hand thing, I want to hear about that. I want to hear from those folks.
Yeah.
Like what is it that makes that difficult? Is it just a the fingers don't bend that way. It's
what's everyday life like? How do you get on
Also,
with this ailment?
Also, if you want to do something really funny and work your hand muscles at the same time, just switch off.
well, okay, yes. Sorry, my head was going into the gutters there. Suddenly was about to turn not safe for work. I thought, okay, this is going to be.
Can you make a little music video?
One of those
doing
nights.
that, please? Like to like some tune, like
The Ballad of Bilbo Baggins. Yeah, we could do it.
I'm sure it'll be a meme somewhere.
I have actually written a Star Trek rap, but I'll save that.
Oh, please, no, not rap, not Star Trek rap. I can't do it. I can't cope with
and
life.
another time will be as punishment, clearly. So
that would be punishment, like a Star Trek country song or Star Trek mumble rap.
Okay, I can change the genre of the song, but I will keep the rap for punishment in the background.
That's like worse than waterboarding. I imagine it would be. You can't take Star Trek and try to combine it with that. It just wouldn't work, would it? Nah.
I mean, it depends the definition of rap. If I use the word very loosely, I'm not trying to make any sort of, poetic statement at all. But I just, it's more like Star Trek poetry for children is probably the best way to describe it.
Okay. Like there once was a girl from Venus. Her body was shaped like from
Enterprise?
TNG. No, TNG, second episode. The crew got all like drunk-ish. In fact,
I thought that was the third episode, the whole polywater thing.
Well, it depends on how the original airing of Encounter at Farpoint was like counted as episode 1 and 2, even though it aired as a 2-part together episode.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's what I thought. Okay.
That's always tricky. Is that whole thing counted as episode 1? And then number 2 is what the episode after Encounter at Farpoint, or is part 1 episode 1 and part 2 is episode 2, and then episode 3 is.
This can't be the most pressing issues going on.
You're right. Well, see, whose fault was that? Who got us there?
No, the most pressing you did, by the way, and the most pressing issue is how is data affected by polywater? He's an android.
I think that was polywater.
Yeah, the polywater. That made him and Natasha have relations.
How?
Fully functional relations.
Yeah, and he's an android.
So I will say that Out of Universe, it, of course, was one of those things where the character of Data was new and they were still trying to figure out how to portray him. Oh, what's that on your clipboard? Functional program and program multiple
Fully
techniques.
Functional program multiple techniques.
I can't believe you just happen to have that on a clipboard. We were talking about it, and you just happen to have that to pull out. What's that?
I replicated it while you.
You lie. I believe it replicated it.
She's got a matter synthesizer.
Yeah, I think part of it is just not really exactly sure yet in regards to the direction of the character and how it's going to be portrayed. But in universe, I would say,
But they definitely wanted it to be sexy. They really made it clear they wanted it to be sexy. Star Trek was going to be sexy.
Well, and this was the 80s. A lot of weird stuff happened in the 80s.
Wait, well, Star Trek was sexy in the 60s. I mean, have you guys seen all of the outfits the women wore?
The miniskirts, yeah.
Just very much every alien that was a woman.
Very much a product of its time, yeah.
Very, very sexy. But I think the sexiest is probably Enterprise.
Really?
Well, they were trying to make Enterprise the sexiest.
They were trying to appeal to a demographic that I don't think really existed. I don't know why they thought was there. But
that gel, the body gel that they had to rub on each other's bodies.
Oh yeah, the whole body gel thing. It doesn't work. Yeah. It didn't work. I see what they were going for, what they were trying to do, but No one's going to Star Trek for sexy TV.
I guess it's different when you're looking at it now as an adult versus when initially watching it as a kid. The perspectives are a little different. It's like now I could see all the things that they were trying to do in Enterprise was trying to appeal to a sexier demographic, I guess. Whereas back then when I was watching it, it's like, oh yeah, it's Star Trek. It predated the transporter filters. So obviously whatever they had to pick up, they had to.
Oh well, yeah.
So there was very
better with pajamas, like little very sparkly pajamas.
But I think absolutely, they had to use the biodecontamination gel or whatever, but the way they did it and presented it was like the shirtless volleyball scene in Top Gun. Let's just focus on the physique, the sex appeal, the getting the Trek fans that are, I guess, into that kind of thing. Those of us that
too much.
It was a bit much.
They were trying to continue that whole. There was kind of a break, right? Because in TNG you had Deanna Troi wearing a catsuit.
Yep.
DS9 didn't really have anybody like that, and then Voyager comes along and you get 7 of 9. Mm-hmm. And so they wanted to continue that with T'Pol, right? So you had that kind of natural.
You had Wesley Crusher in TNG. He wore a catsuit.
Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking DS9, I think Kira's outfit was probably a little bit on that we want a tight outfit, sex appeal kind of thing.
For sure.
But it was, there was some functionality to that uniform as opposed to being super skin tight.
Yes.
Oh, the outfits I think that were the most provocative in DS9 were probably the Duras sisters.
Oh yeah, you mean the cleavage sisters? Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Well, and it's if you go back and look at it, 90s Trek with Rick Berman and Brandon Braga behind the reins was certainly very special, I guess I would say. And lots of stories you'll hear about the chauvinistic side of the producers there, especially those two guys. That was one of the big reasons why Gates McFadden left after the first season. There were a few things. You
don't hear the best about Roddenberry, I think.
No,
but we won't get into that.
That's a whole other episode.
A whole volcano's worth of content that's far too nuanced, even for my huge brains.
Well, at the expense of sounding like a person who doesn't care, it's hard to compare different eras.
Sorry, I did not mean to talk about this if I don't care. Because obviously I care very much.
No, I'm just saying, like, comparing today's standards to what the TV was back then, or to what people were doing backstage. It's I don't agree with it, but
nothing's changed. Our favorite creators now are getting arrested, like Rick and Morty, a guy. Like it's like I don't think much has changed really, or at least it's being exposed a little bit more outright now.
Well, again, now it's being more exposed, but back then unfortunately, it was the norm. Doesn't mean it's right. Let me be very clear about that. Doesn't mean it's right. I'm just saying
it's just what it was.
We can't hold shows made 20, 30 years ago to today's standards.
You're right. There's so much that would not be aired today compared to when it was then. Back then, it was more normal, or at least it fit.
Yeah. The episode that really comes to mind is Beverly and a Ghost.
No. Why does every damn Star Trek conversation have to? No. Why does everyone always bring that up? God, I'm trying to get that out of my head, and we always circle back around to that. It's horrible.
I think that out of all the episodes of Star Trek, and there's a lot of episodes of new Star Trek that I don't like, but out of all the episodes of Star Trek, all 900 whatever, 16 movies, that one was absolutely the worst.
Think about this.
100%.
I want you guys.
Undeniable. undeniable. Yeah, you're right. It's so stupid and pointless and ruins pressure and so much about like the respect of Star Trek.
Yeah. I mean, I would sit. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I would sit through more scenes of Michael Burnham crying in a little battlefield than watch Beverly and her ghost.
I would rather watch a Keiko O'Brien episode than to have to sit through the Beverly and the ghost thing. So think about this, because I talked about this one other time where the ghost episode was talked about. So this episode, this scene was thought about, talked about, written.
You said this last week on my show.
Storyboarded. I did. That's when I said, okay, I'm telling you, brain's gone. But they went through the entire process that they go through, talking about it, writing it, storyboarding it, filming it, directing it, acting in it. Nobody stopped and said, we probably shouldn't.
And I bet it went through multiple takes. Just
oh my God, that's right. Now, Gates, look more aroused. Look a little more closer to this ghost is giving you the big O. Really get into it. Get into this scene. Let's do another take. All right, take 37, action.
37. Oh my God.
Well, how often do you guys, let's talk about this. How often do you guys usually do content? Is it usually like a weekly thing? Have you been doing that for, when did you start? Has it been a couple of years? Because I can tell you, Beyond Trek, we started in June of 2019 and have gone through a few different sort of iterations as we changed and adjusted and did different formats. And usually during the seasons of any of the shows, we'll do a weekly podcast review. So for you guys, what would you say is kind of how often are you putting out content for your viewers and listeners? So you're about to tell us about Alfie, how long Highly Illogical has been around and how often you guys put up content?
So Highly Illogical, the podcast, we like the critically ignored podcast, we like to call it, has been around for 18 months. And then our live stream has probably been going about maybe 8 months to a year now. We moved over from doing just the podcast regularly to the live stream, just to change things up a bit. And we've got like a really like awesome community of people that would join the chat and participate in the quiz that we do. On our podcast, we did have a game section at the end of the podcast, each episode related to the topic of the podcast. So we always pick a topic, and we still pick a topic now for our quiz. So each week we'll pick a new topic, either from the chat we'll suggest one, or we will just pull something out of our ass. And then we do a quiz testing each other on our knowledge pertaining to the particular subject in question. The rounds kind of all the mix of loads of different games, like Family Feud style, or like picture rounds, or we'll do fast rounds, or audio rounds, video rounds. We try and mix it up as best as we can. Sometimes with our acting, our Shakespearean Picard will come out and embarrass us tremendously.
Tech, how about you on your side?
Oh, on here, you guys.
Yeah, so Trek Talk is recorded every week on Sundays. But when it gets released, usually there's anywhere between a month to 2 month lag time. And I think that's a somewhat interesting.
Can you say all that again? Because speakers weren't working. I didn't hear any of that. Really
okay. Let's hear it again.
Yeah, so Trek Talk is recorded weekly on Sunday mornings. And Sunday mornings, Pacific/Eastern time. And the content is then released maybe about a month or 2 months later, depending on how quickly we can get it processed. And the interesting part about that is in the game itself, a week can seem like a very long time. And so when you start hearing about content that was a month or 2 months old, you start remembering, oh yeah, this happened, or this conflict happened with these people over here. And that was really funny because X, Y, and Z happened. And so our content is filled with content regarding the game and how, most often updates that are released in the game aren't great. They're usually broken to begin with, but they get better over time. But the community really emphasizes certain things, and the digital overlords sometimes acknowledge us. Most of the time they don't. They just
that's
do their
nice.
own thing. And for them, the most important part is we keep spending money, and people do because there's a lot of.
That's what they're all about in that game. It's all about the money. Just how do you pronounce it? Scopely or Scopelli? Scopely?
Yeah, Scopely.
Scopely. They're only
a Ferengi company.
Pretty much.
I think all companies are Ferengi companies. I don't think there's really altruistic, futuristic type of companies.
What about non-profits? That would be kind of absurd to a Ferengi. Non-profit.
No profit.
Technically, insurance companies are non-profits, so you know how that works.
I was exaggerating on the word profit.
Yeah. The content, and it varies, right? We do all sorts of topics. The game, we really got involved on this drama kick where a lot of drama happens because the game is very social between either servers or alliances or just in general people making trouble for a variety of reasons.
Are there big names or established characters within the community from having, all this kind of crazy interconnected stories and lore just about the game itself?
No, it's more so the game itself is not really a Star Trek game. It's more like a war game where you point, click, and shoot, and it's got Star Trek trade dress on it, effectively. And so effectively what happens is there are a few things you do. You can farm or kill NPCs or non-player characters. So they're just ships in random systems. You can kill other players, and then you can mine. And then so a lot of conflicts usually resolve around
mine, kill.
Yeah. So a lot of conflict usually resolves in people mining and other people wanting to take your stuff while you're mining. And so a lot of conflict arises from that because you only have your cargo only has so much protected cargo and the rest of it is overprotected. And so if somebody hits you and you're over the protected limit, then they take all of that stuff that is not protected. And so a lot of people get upset over things of that nature. And then you have your own starbase, which has resources, and it can also be over the protected limit. In fact, most of the time it is.
Can you trade any of your resources?
You can't trade.
There's no player economy because that would defeat Scopely's purpose of having this be a strict money-making game for them. And
yeah, so it is one of the most expensive mobile games probably ever to play, simply because once you progress to a high enough level, you need to spend about $1,000, roughly speaking, to upgrade 1 out of 8 or 9 or 10 components of one ship.
Why would you do that?
Well,
you're not selling this to me. Why the hell would you do that?
It appeals to people that have that gambling addiction, I think.
Yeah,
yeah, I know. Yeah.
Hey,
you hit those paywalls. It's either you're done playing,
people
if you want to continue,
to spend the money, and they're willing to be the top dog, and they're willing to either wreak havoc or keep order.
If it gives them meaning, then that's cool. But okay.
In the name of Star Trek,
they slap the name Star Trek on it to help with that money. That's where their purpose of using that IP is. How much can we squeeze out of the player base?
And
that's so anti-Star Trek. That's so anti-ethos.
Yeah, of course it is.
Except if you're Ferengi.
I mean, now they've released content called the Alliance Starbase. So not only do you mine, but your Alliance can mine, various colored yarn ball.
For you.
Well, it mines plasma or whatever it's called to upgrade itself so that you can unlock more research in the game so you can make your stuff better. And in the name of Star Trek, you can assault another alliance's starbase.
Yeah.
Mine that dilithium.
Yeah, dilithium. See, the thing is, back in the day, so the game has really evolved, by the way. To say good things about the game is that it's evolved to a better state. There's a lot more sleek content. There's a lot of new IP, or not. It used to be a Kelvin timeline game, and then when Viacom and CBS and Paramount all remerged into one, and everything was put back under one umbrella, Scopely was able to license all the other content. So we have TNG, we have TOS, DS9, RCAP and Lower Decks, things of that nature. So there's a lot of really cool content. There's a lot of really cool ships, and a lot of things that they put into this game is way better than what the game was initially. Much better than what the game was initially. I will credit them that 100%.
And probably more expensive.
It's a lot more expensive, but yeah, it's like back in the day you had to mine dilithium, and now there is absolutely zero way you can mine enough dilithium to upgrade all the components that you
No, not even close.
Your mining rate, just to be clear, your mining rate is like at maximum could be about, let's say, 10,000 dilithium an hour. To upgrade one of my components, and I'm a mid-level player, so to upgrade one of my components is 15 million dilithium.
Right.
And now if I want to get into more research, 48 million dilithium, 127 million dilithium, right? Not to mention if you're at the high end, at the high end of the pay scale, if you will, your stuff is 2.9 billion, 6.4 billion. If you get up into the 60s, you might be looking at 1 trillion dilithium that you got to spend on a research node. So there's no way you can mine that stuff.
The game is literally unplayable to people that don't want to spend the money.
What about cloning?
Cloning?
Like in what way?
Well, if you cloned yourself.
You can have 5 miners mining, or 6 miners, or 7 miners. But
how many big J's do I need to not have to spend money on this game?
How many big J's? Not enough. It would not be. That's not going to get you too far.
Well, when you know the important answer.
Well, Alfie,
that's going to be a trivia question.
That sounds
good. It's going to be a trivia question. How many big J's do you need to be a level 60 in Star Trek Fleet Command?
Find out next week.
Yes. Alfie, what got Highly Illogical, your podcast, switched over to doing weekly trivia?
Good question.
Because that's a pretty interesting shift.
So we, on our original podcast, as I mentioned before, we did have a game section at the end related to the topic of that episode. And we were finding that part of it, we always had the most fun doing, rather than going through the lore and the fun facts and sort of just general nonsense jibber jabber around a particular topic. We always kind of look forward to doing the game section the most. And, that also resonated, I think, with our audience at the time. So we just honed in on that. And we wanted to try doing the live stream, because we were engaged with this up and coming platform called Bolt Plus, and they're an emerging Web3 streaming platform. And we thought we'd just give it a go on that, because they were looking into specialized communities, niche communities, and we were doing the podcast anyway. And the live stream, yeah, it was cool. I mean, we don't have to edit it, so it was.
And Bolt's pretty cool.
It wasn't easier to produce. it's not easy to produce because we still put a lot of work in sort of like the preparation, and we kind of try and implement as many assets as possible in multimedia and make it kind of more
make it flashy,
interactive as possible as well. And we get kicks out of that. So, yeah. And Spanner and I, we just kind of, take the piss out of each other. We don't take ourselves or it very seriously at all. I mean, we take Star Trek very seriously, but the show, we just there to spread the love and have fun, and also see who is the smartest or knows the most about Star Trek in all of the Alpha Quadrant. It's definitely not me or Spanner. Maybe Spanner. But no, it's neither of us. Big J, you're probably up for it though. Yeah.
Speaking of Alpha Quadrant, has anybody ever noticed that on the Star Trek map that Earth is located right at the center point of the Alpha and the Beta Quadrant?
I have.
So how can we say that the Sol system is in the Alpha Quadrant when Earth is like right in the middle?
You're right. It does not make sense. I've really never thought that made a lot of sense.
Like, if it's before the 5 slightly, it goes to whichever side.
Depends on depends on the year, right? Half the year it's in the Alpha Quadrant, half the year it's in the Beta Quadrant.
That sounds fair. It's like a leap year, but
a leap year for the galaxy. Well, to tell you a little bit about Beyond Trek podcast. So when we started, the last thing we wanted to do was to be like every other Star Trek podcast that's created, which is an episode review show, and probably starts with something like, we're going to review the top 10 episodes of The Next Generation. Okay, that's really original. Not. So we wanted to do something different, kind of like pre-scripted audio dramas, just sort of off the wall kind of different things and stories. We would still talk about anything that was in the news, like the Star Trek conventions. If there was any passing of characters and actors, if there's the unfortunate of that, we would talk about that and kind of give an homage to that person and their role in their life. We basically tried to do anything we could come up with except reviewing episodes all the time, because we just felt that everyone was doing that. And
speaking of which, is Data finally dead? Like, did he finally die?
Data is finally dead. Yes.
Like we're not going to have another death fake out.
No, we shouldn't. But it's interesting you bring up Picard. So the day that was announced that Patrick Stewart was coming back as Jean-Luc Picard, and that first trailer from Picard, we got together and we talked and said, do we really want to just stick our thumb at reviewing episodes? Because now, and at the time, Discovery was really kind of, we didn't want to, it was very divisive at that time. It was around the first, second season. So
still is.
We didn't want to jump into that shit show. But when Picard was coming back, we kind of decided this is going to be what everyone's watching and talking about. If we want to be current or relevant, we're just going to have to give in and do episode reviews and jump on that train. But we could still find a way to make it special and unique for us. Just add our own thing and kind of our own flavor to it, which we like and we have fun. And there are things that we do that is the reason why people tune in for us. But like I said, and this seems like the experience for all of us, Star Trek podcasts are very fat in the tail. There's a lot of them, and we're all fighting over the same small niche demographic of science fiction fans that like Star Trek. So, and we kind of hit that point where it just felt like posting on Facebook about our stuff and on Twitter only go so far, because I think the thing that is the takeaway, at least that I feel is takeaway when people see this, is, oh, not another Star Trek podcast. You know what I mean? It's kind of an eye roller when you hear about it. And that was one of the names we tossed around before settling on the Starfleet Podcast Network, was not another Star Trek podcast. But
I totally agree with you, but I also think that this is a really good opportunity to almost like bring together awesome Star Trek content and have it not so like, people are like, oh, not another Star Trek podcast. It's more of like, okay, well, this channel is going to have all kinds of different Star Trek stuff that is like one place to find it. And you never know, you'll be surprised about what kind of random Star Trek shit that's going to pop up on the channel.
Mm-hmm.
Albeit it might be an episode.
Shit, by the way. We're not Star Trek shit. You come for the Star Trek shit and, leave listening to us talking about Pokemon or something.
Pokemon.
Like, got to catch them all, whatever,
Yeah.
It's like the STDs. Got to catch them all.
Okay.
Exactly.
There's only 9.
Idea, whatever.
It's like the amount of podcasts we have. There's 900 of them in your Pokedex or the Starfleet Podcast Network. You can find them all. Right?
Yeah. Hopefully it will grow like that.
Yeah.
Find others. Well, and that raises a good point. Alfie, you guys today on your live stream had a podcast group that focuses on the music in Star Trek. And that was the first thing I thought was, wow, that would be an awesome, if they were to want to join something like this, because that's another gap that fills. We're kind of like a Venn diagram for each other. We overlap in certain things, but then you start spreading out into what we specialize in, and none of the three of us.
Venn diagrams are hard.
Yeah. Oh, that's so sweet. But the couple of the gaps that we still have is book reviews, the musical side, things like that. So that's how you grow your audience, is you put us together so that hopefully we kind of turn it into a kind of a one-stop shop, or if anything, at least create something that gets a few more likes on Facebook, and that's it.
Just want a few more likes.
That's all I want. I want a couple of these likes to turn into subscribers. And it hasn't.
2 little likes.
Yeah, can I get a like?
Please, whoever's watching this video, please like, comment, subscribe below.
We've got all these family, all friends, and it's like, come on, guys, help us out. So that's.
I've just unplugged this. I'm just going to throw it in the garbage.
That microphone, just get rid of it. I like those glasses. Put those glasses on again. The ones that kind of look like Geordie's visor. Ooh.
Yeah, these are my LaForges by LaForge.
Nice. So everyone's heard a little bit more about us, our history, what we're doing, what we're going to do here. So we encourage everyone to spread the news. You've got a Star Trek Podcast Network, which is going to be comprised of individual, unique podcasts like Trek Talk, Highly Illogical, and Beyond Trek. Hopefully, as we go along, we have others that want to join up with us. So thank you. And guys, thank you too for sitting down and doing this. I know traversing across time zones to get coordinated is a tough thing, but we're all here for the same purpose, our love and enjoyment of Star Trek. So good night, good day, and live long and prosper.
Super excited.